What kind of wannabe Alice in Chains is this going on? What's up? How's everybody doing? Welcome aboard this old train. For the next hour or so, I'm going to be your host. My name is Matt, the Grass Factor. Man. Yeah, I have no idea where the music came from. I went to my old playlist here and flipped it on, and all of a sudden, this song is called Stone Cold. And last night over in the Discord, and if anybody's wondering about the Discord, I might give it out a little later. But in the Discord last night, we were talking about wrestling. Late 90s, early 2000s wrestling. And this is called Stone Cold. And I was like, man, this is going to be perfect to come out to. Little did I know it was going to be a little bit like Mushroom Head there. Ding, 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 ding. Now this is kind of a rip-off of Gaslight Anthem, so hey, the things you do for YouTube. Actually, I pay for this too. All right. So, yeah, for the next hour or so, I don't know. If it goes 2 hours, it goes 2 hours. We'll see how long it takes me to get to the end of the chat. But we're going to do this. This is the live stream. This is the lawn care help desk. So the way this typically works is you ask questions, I provide answers. This is an open format. There is no structure. The structure is dictated by the viewer, you. Woo! Connor, if you could please man the Discord door, I'll go ahead and give it out. If y'all are interested in the show before the show after the show, it's kind of a hangout space. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's the link. I just threw it in the chat right there. You can go to it, thelawndiscord.com. Tito clearly saw the radio show. Man, that was the way that music was going on in the background there. It just worked out perfectly. So, however else that ended up working, that's good stuff. Kenny! Oh yeah! Okay, all right. Let me get this out of here. So again, the way this works, open format, meaning you ask questions, I will do my best to provide answers. My background is turf grass, and really I've spent the entirety of my career in professional lawn care. So that's where I feel most comfortable is answering questions about lawns. Now, a little bit about me. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, which is where I began kind of the lawn care piece of this. Before then, it had started out here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live now. Where it was a little foray into golf. It was, oh man, it was kind of tough. Boy, that was kind of some tough stuff. Oh man, I missed the hell yeah there. Hang on, let me see if I can do this.
Hell yeah!
Oh yeah! Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. So anyway, in that vein, lawn care is where I feel most comfortable. Now, because I have worked in lawn care, with the territory also comes along, trees and shrubs. So I've got a little experience in that realm too. I was a tree and shrub tech for many years, coinciding with my lawn care technician training. I guess I kind of cross-trained and went this way and a little bit of that way, or whatever else you do. I did all of that fun stuff. So I feel a little bit comfortable in there, but really at the end of the day, you know, I teach turf, quote unquote, professionally on YouTube. So that's where I feel most comfortable. Okay. All right. That being said, we'll go ahead and roll to the part of the show where go ahead and begin asking your questions in the chat, and I will get to them. Now, a couple of things to preface this. I am human. I am fallible. I make mistakes. Just because I'm wearing a Don Johnson shirt doesn't mean I'm actually Don Johnson. In the same vein, just because I play a professional on YouTube doesn't mean I am not capable of making mistakes. That being said, I highly recommend everybody double check everything it is that I say. A lot of times I may interpret something about your lawn. And when I make assumptions, we all know what assumptions mean. They make an ass out of you and me. For instance, if I assume you have cool season grass and I recommend a sedge control like Monument will also kill cool season grass as well as control sedge. So just putting that out there that I do make mistakes when I'm not aware of the full story, or sometimes I'll just misread it. Another bit of a reminder and preface is that I do all this stream of consciousness. This is not pre-planned. I'm going right down the list, and so I'm doing my best to look at the next question that's being asked while I'm answering the previous question. So just understand that I make mistakes. Let's see, what else? Oh, yes. Also, one of the other things I want to bring up is the fact that, again, there are a million ways to make a lawn look good. There are many, many different ways to get to the end result. And that being said, my recommendations are based off my experience and my education. If you have different experience and different education, therefore, you may have a different opinion on how to get there. So just understand, this is just one person's view on the way to get there. Now, the approach I take is typically from a scientific approach. I like to see things in written papers. I like to actually perform experiments and see. That's how I built my career, was just taking gigantic risks to learn the ins and outs of each of these products that I was using. Now, that being said, throw your question in the chat and let's go ahead and get started. Now, I'm not sure what the first question was that came in. I know there was kind of the show before the show right here in the chat. So I'm looking back through it, and I do not see anything that looks like it was actually part of the show. What are you doing, JPEG?
Hell yeah!
Unnecessary, sir. Unnecessary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll do that one more time. Can I get a repeat on that?
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah! All right. Let's see here. Explain sprout and pout, and how soon can I add AMS to my new seedlings? Okay, well, sprout and pout is just kind of a genetic trait of Kentucky bluegrass. It just kind of naturally occurs. It's part of its genetics. It's kind of like the same way that we really don't experiencing just exponential growth until, you know, really or I guess the biggest changes that occur to us on a physical standpoint is when we enter puberty. It's kind of the same thing. It's that race to puberty for Kentucky bluegrass. Now, that's just that's not reality. It's not, you know, I'm going to make that clear. I'm just using that as an analogy, as a comparison. I'm not saying literally it goes into puberty, but, you know, similar kind of state there where it takes a second before it is able to get going due to whatever it is genetically that favors that sprout and pout. Let's say, hell yeah. All right, I'm choking over here. Okay, so now that we have that established,
hell yeah!
Yeah. Now that we have that established, it's a genetic deal with Kentucky bluegrass. The next question, the next piece of that is, how soon can I add AMS to my new seedlings? Well, if it's up, technically you can. So it's all about managing the salt index against it, right? So AMS, so we're talking a little bit higher on the salt index, meaning that whatever application rate you apply, just make sure you water it in well. And that's really it. So if it's up just barely, if it's up a good inch, if it's up a good 2.5 inches, whatever the case may be, anywhere in between, go ahead, have at it. It would just be more critical that you get water on it. The earlier you can, the smaller it is. So say it's 2 inches tall, then you might be able to give it 24 hours before there's real need to have to water it. If it's only 1 inch, then you may not want to wait any more than 2 hours to water it. If it's less than 1 inch, then you definitely don't want to wait to water it. As soon as you finish spraying, you're flipping on the water kind of deal there. It's all about managing salt, especially at the early stages, because you don't have much of a root system to be able to tolerate it. How about that? Let's see here. Hi, Matt. What would you recommend for a fall pre-emergent on zoysia? I used up my annual prodiamine in the spring. This is pretty simple since you went ahead and maxed out on the dinitroalanine, the DNAs. You could technically switch AIs and move over to like Dimension or pendimethalin. In my opinion and in my experience, your better bet would be going with something like Spectacle in the fall. Spectacle is about the last hoorah we have left of good, effective control over our winter weeds. So I would make the transition to Spectacle, not have to worry about all the POA breakthrough, and be done with it. Good sir. Optimum height to cut your Bermuda the last time heading into winter. There is no real optimum height. It's all about just leaving it taller than what your normal management height was, right? So you want that canopy to be as dense as humanly possible. The canopy is dense. Now, I'm not just talking about crossover between the stolons. I'm actually talking about the density of the canopy. If you can look down and you can see the ground and you can see accumulation of grass clippings or whatever the case may be, you're cutting too low. You want it to literally be a layer of impenetrable foliage that has gone dormant across the surface. So what is that height? Well, if you maintain at 1/4 of an inch, probably 1/2 an inch will get you there. If you maintain at 1/2 an inch, probably 3/4 of an inch will get you there. If you maintain at 3/4 of an inch, probably an inch will get you there. It's kind of hard to say, but what's most important is that you do make that last cut higher to maintain that canopy density. And that canopy density is what will give you your best ultimate fighting chance against infiltration from our difficult to control weeds like POA. Polo, what's up, dude? Can you spray Ranger Pro and Tenacity at the same time on seeding? While seeding different spray tanks, of course. Yeah, you can. And in fact, you can actually spray them out of the same tank, because I'm all about simplicity. And so, you're talking about an HPPD inhibitor there and whatever glyphosate is. But anyway, you can combine those two, make your application, and be done with it. Dunzo. Now, I wouldn't be trying to make 2 applications back to back in that vein. Tyler D said, being in West Tennessee, when would you normally do your last herbicide application in Bermuda to go after buttonweed and crabgrass? Here's the thing. It all comes down to personal preference, right? And I can't answer this question for you. So what you have to weigh is, how long are you willing to be patient until your crabgrass and buttonweed goes away? Because realistically, where you are, if you're in West Tennessee, I'm just going to assume Memphis because that's where I'm from. I would say that you're in Memphis, crabgrass and buttonweed are going to be there until October. So if I can be okay with seeing it until October, and buttonweed will probably fizzle out a little earlier than that, maybe the end of September timeframe on your buttonweed. But if I'm okay with it going away then yeah, I'm just not going to treat it like now. If I'm not okay with it, then I'm going to go ahead and treat it. It's all a matter of personal preference at that point, because I could say the same thing in July. Well, I know I'm in July and I can spend, $1,000 trying to get rid of the crabgrass and buttonweed, or I can just wait and let it go dormant and be a little bit more prepared for it earlier next year. Does that make sense? So it's hard to say. You can kill them up until they do go completely dormant, so I'm not overly concerned about that. Physically, you can do that. But again, it all comes down to personal preference at that point. If anybody missed it, the segment from Friday on Turfs Up Radio, of course, it's uploaded to YouTube. I'm trying to put all of those, live stream all those on YouTube as I do them. You can go back and reference them, but I was playing some real inspirational music there, and I went ham. I was feeding into the emotion of it, and boy, we were saving souls. We were shooting lightning out of our fingertips. We were doing all kinds of stuff, and that was a good time. That was a real good time. How do you feel about aeration and aeration? Which do you prefer? Okay, I'll give you two examples here, Steve Wingate, good sir. Aeration, assuming you use a hollow tine aeration and you're actually physically removing a core of soil out of the ground, the advantage you have there is that you can actually remove part of your existing soil and replace it with something else. So, if you have a soil that is very high in magnesium and doesn't drain well, you can actually remove a piece of that soil, collect it, and then replace it with something that drains exceptionally well, like sand. So it's just a nice way to trade out one for the other. The other thing too, when it comes to lowering the bulk density of your soil, if you use an aeration and an aeration with a hollow tine core, that you pull your core and you're actually removing soil material. Therefore, you're removing the mass of the soil over a given volume, therefore decreasing the bulk density. Density, mass over volume. If you remove mass and your volume stays the same, then you have decreased your...
Hell yeah!
Yeah, Jake Sector. You have decreased your bulk density. So there you go. When it comes to aeration versus aeration, if you are happy with the consistency of your soil, then by all means, aeration is going to be great. It's just a way to loosen things up, increase gas exchange. You're going to do that too. And if you're just trying to create a better seed bed, I don't think there's really anything better in terms of in creating a seed bed than an aeration. What an aeration is not going to do is actually physically remove soil that you can then go back and replace with something else, or just lower bulk density altogether. It might, but probably not at the same rate as an aeration would, especially if you were collecting your cores in an aeration. So if it's part of a seed program and you're happy with your current situation, I think aeration can't be beat. If you're trying to physically manipulate the structure of your soil or physically reduce bulk density, then a hollow tine core aeration is the only way to do that. Andy Kelly said, do you know of an effective mole repellent? You posted a video of a mole trap not too long ago. Do you remember the name of that product? I don't. It's somewhere on YouTube, though. I shared it, and it was, who was it? It was Push It to the Limit. Lawn Pusher was the one who put it up, and I shared it. I thought it was pretty neat. Trapping is the only thing I know. I've tried different kinds of sprays and smells and all this kind of fun stuff, and I've never had success with it. Maybe peanuts, if just you catch an absolute miracle out of it, you might get something out of there. But at the end of the day, really at the end of the day, your best bet is to trap them and get rid of them. Oh man, I jumped down to the bottom. Let me see here. Chad Fleming says ammonium sulfate versus ammonium nitrate. Pros, cons, cool season grass, pH of 7. Sandy Loam, CEC of 10.5. Okay, if I had a pH of 7, why I would go ammonium sulfate is because I actually like my soil pH a little bit lower than that. Ammonium sulfate is going to do a little bit better in lowering your soil pH than ammonium nitrate will. Then, second of all, I would look at cost versus ease of application. Somewhere in there, ammonium sulfate, chances are I can get cheaper and easier than I can ammonium nitrate. Third, what it comes down to ultimately is safety. There's a reason why you have to sign the dotted line when you buy ammonium nitrate. it goes boom, and not just a little bit of boom, it goes big boom. If anybody saw the explosion, and I'm not going to go down the conspiracy theory wormhole of what took place in Beirut, that was a couple of 1,000 tons of ammonium nitrate going boom. If anybody remembers the fertilizer plant explosion in Texas, that was just 40 tons of ammonium nitrate going boom. If anybody remembers Oklahoma City, we're only talking about 1 or 2 tons of, so we're talking 40 to 80 bags of ammonium nitrate going boom. So, in my opinion, ammonium nitrate is not worth the risk versus the result you get. Anecdotally, there are some studies that show extended use of ammonium nitrate has led to a decrease in plant performance. In some outside kind of studies, some fringe studies on ammonium sulfate has been shown to reduce disease potential. But again, at the end of the day, ease of acquisition, cost of acquisition versus performance, you're not really gaining anything on the performance aspect of it. So therefore, I would go ease of application, cost of application, and the fact that I don't have to sign the book that gives the government permission to monitor me. Therefore, I choose ammonium sulfate. Have you ever burned down a shed? Yes, indeed, I have. I don't think that's any real secret here, Mr. Willis. Matt, when using Depth Kick or K-Max, what is the ideal amount of time to have these products sit on the blades before watering in? Really, you kind of pick your poison on that. With something like Depth Kick, I wouldn't say there's an ideal amount of time to let them sit. K-Max or Depth Kick, hour, 2 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. You're all kind of going to get about the same thing. Depth Kick has a bit of a humectant in it to keep it wetter longer on the leaf blade itself. But at the end of the day, what is not taken up by the leaf will be taken up by the root system. So there's no real necessary thing to worry about. My brother just purchased a home with a lawn infested with broadleaf weeds. I have Celsius. Can I use MCPA or triclopyr ester as a kicker, or would that be too hot on Bermuda? On Bermuda, I would not use triclopyr at all. No, sir. That's going to be way too hot. You can use MCPA, but go ahead and mentally prepare for the damage that's coming by using MCPA. I'm telling you, it's just going to happen no matter how you skin it, even if you're running just a half rate. So what you can do is take Celsius and then, run like a quarter rate of MCPA, broaden your spectrum there a little bit, still going to get a bit of discoloration. Celsius would be the safest thing you could do, but at the end of the day, MCPA is going to be fairly tolerant on Bermuda grass. And I see out of the corner of my, that's somebody else, never mind. What would happen if someone made a mistake and accidentally applied about 8 to 9 pounds per 1,000 of elemental sulfur instead of the recommended 5 pounds? Asking not for a friend, said Jeff R. Zone 5B. Okay, since you're in Zone 5B, the point you have working in your favor is that you may be cooled off a little bit. You may be a little bit cooled off. If that's the case, the mineralization part of this, the bacterial degradation of elemental sulfur into sulfuric acid, that's what elemental sulfur turns into, is sulfuric acid. I'm not talking about sulfate on a fertilizer label. Sulfate on a fertilizer label does not turn into sulfuric acid and does not affect soil pH. Elemental sulfur does, and it is not a sulfate, it's elemental sulfur, and it breaks down into sulfuric acid. At 9 pounds per 1,000, you're flirting with disaster. I would water pretty freaking aggressively to try and move it out of deeper through your root system and out of contact with your roots, because if all of that were to convert at one time, it would effectively torch your roots. Now, If you have cooler temperatures working in your favor, mineralization is going to be lower. Bacterial activity is going to be lower. The conversion rate is going to be slower. Therefore, it may buy you time. It may convert at a slow enough rate that it's not going to damage you. And while I see Brandon in here, kind of a new thing here, we have a new distributor, and that's going to be Charlotte Fertilizer Company. For anybody in the Charlotte area, feel free to reach out to these guys. I think you can look them up on the social media front, and they will be carrying a whole host of our products. I know we sent them just recently a truck out that way, so be sure show some love to Charlotte Fertilizer Company. They took a risk on us, and so always want to support those guys as well. All right, let's see here. Can I combine tenacity and speed zone in the same tank? Yes. And if so, should I still add a non-ionic surfactant? Yes. Easy enough. Matt, did I hear you have a 2020 coming out? If so, count me in. Yes, if you would like to see at least everything we have as floor stock right now, you can go to carbonearth.co and you can see we have a 2020 right there under the granular fertilizer section that we are out and going ham with. So, yeah, that's out. We've got, I don't know, a few hundred pallets of it out now, having good results with it. So that's been a fun one to add to the arsenal. Lawn Care Monster says, can you talk about 2,4-D? I don't know really what you want me to say about 2,4-D, but I can kind of give you a rundown. 2,4-D, first and foremost, let's go ahead and clear this out. When some people talk about 2,4-D, what you're going to hear is that, oh, it's the same thing as Agent Orange that was used in Vietnam. And I want to make this very clear. First, what happened in Vietnam was atrocious, just an absolute awful, awful thing. But when we look at what was in Agent Orange versus what's in 2,4-D, there's very little crossover there because really the big kicker was 2,4,5-T and the manufacturing byproducts that came with the production of 2,4,5-T, which posed to be such a health hazard to human beings. So I want to clear that out of the air first. If somebody ever comes at you and says, oh, you're running 2,4-D, you're running Agent Orange. No, I am not. That's 2,4,5-T. Different deal there. Then the second piece of it is that it is a synthetic auxin, meaning when you apply it to the plant takes it in and feels like it is an auxin growth hormone. That's why when you apply it, you get this odd kind of accelerated growth and curling and cupping and twisting that takes place because it is mimicking auxin in the plant. It has confused the plant into thinking that it is auxin, and it's being overstimulated with auxin, and overstimulates cell division and growth and reproduction all the way to the point of death. So I hope that helps. I hope that's what you're asking about there because, yeah, I can talk about more, but I need a little bit of guidance on which direction to go with it. Help, how do I get rid of Dallas grass from tall fescue? Pretty easy. Pylex is your friend in this regard. So what I mix is 1 milliliter. I take one of the syringefuls into 1 gallon of water, and assuming I'm applying 1 gallon over 1,000 square feet, I make my application to the Dallas grass. So 1 milliliter per 1,000 square feet with Dallas grass, and I expect to make 3 applications, maybe even 4 applications, but you can get it. If you need to take it up a notch, you want to take it up a notch, add fluazepop to your Pylex, combine those and make an application all together. Is it normal to get yellow blades of grass in tall fescue near Cincinnati this time of year? Disease or my high pH soil? It could be either. Another thing it could be dry. There's lots of different things that could be causing it right now. So it's hard to say, but those are 2 great things to start with right there. And just based on what I kind of know of your weather is that I would go ahead and say I would probably lean towards more at your high pH soil. Steve Sides Jr., what's going on, sir? I wanted to see about the use of X soil as an amendment for a new renovation on a new construction home. That's the most ideal place, in my opinion, in my experience, to use that product. Is new sod, new construction, renovations. Whenever you actually perform a hollow tine aeration, a core aeration where you're removing cores, you can go back in and fill those holes with X soil. All of those would be great examples of when to use X soil. Another example would be like if you are, what was the other one I was going to do? In peak heat, if you're concerned about things at peak heat, or from a professional perspective, sometimes we inherit those properties and it's July and it's 80 degrees and we have to be, or 90 degrees, and we have to be careful what we apply to the yard. You can apply that being organic material, and it's actually going to give you a physical response from the plant. You will get a color response from it from application. So in that same vein, it's also a good fit kind of to use in that window too, when you're really out of options as far as what you can apply. Ed from Buffalo, what's up, man? Have you ever heard of the product called C1? If so, what are your thoughts on the product? I have. I've looked at it and I've looked at the label. And just looking at the label, unless there's some kind of magic in there that is not stated on the label or the SDS, the only thing I can see is that the things that contain actual carbon in that product are your urea. It would be the big, I don't think orthophosphate contains carbon, but it would be urea. And in my opinion, it's kind of a stretch to say you're applying a liquid carbon product when you're applying urea. Technically you are, but that's not really how that works. So normally what they're being talked about when you're talking about applying carbon is that it's either going to come from an organic source, even though, again, technically urea is an organic chemistry and all that fun stuff. But and it is technically carbon-based, but it is also a conventional chemical fertilizer. Most of the time when people are talking about carbon-based, they're not talking about a chemical fertilizer. So it contains urea, phosphorus, and potassium hydroxide. And that's fine. That's totally fine. And the analysis is a 3-2-2. That's fine. There are lots of products out there that contain urea, orthophosphate, and potassium hydroxide, and sulfuric acid. Kind of a little bit how that works, as you react these different things, because when you add all these in, you're going to see an actual reaction. So big acid-base reaction there between potassium hydroxide and sulfuric acid. So depending on the way this is reacted, you might actually end up, instead of having potassium hydroxide and sulfuric acid, you may have like potassium sulfate, SOP, in solution. Or even your sulfuric acid and your orthophosphate may have a different reaction. I don't know. I'm not a chemist. I don't know. But my point is that there's lots of products with this in it. So unless there's something in there that's not on the label, you can get the same thing out of a bag of 13, 13, 13 or 10, 10, 10 or whatever the case may be. Oh man, I jumped down to the bottom. Let me come back up. Okay, when using Spectacle for POA pre, will a single app at 6 ounces do the trick? A home lawn site, or do I need split at 4.5? Expensive. It's expensive for acquisition. Your cost per thousand for application is not that high. Now, the people I know that were doing the lower rates and split applications weren't as happy with the people who were doing the single higher applications. But really, the only time I ever heard that about the split applications was just this last year in the Atlanta area. Outside of the Atlanta area, or really outside of that kind of central part of Georgia, I wasn't hearing it as much. But last year I was hearing that. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to be fine choosing either. At a 4.5 twice, I would expect more carryover into next year. At just a single 6 ounces, I would expect good POA prevention and not a lot of residual into the next year. What is the best herbicide to control crabgrass when overseeding with turf-type tall fescue? I'm in Columbus, Ohio. If indeed, Roshan, it is indeed. Hell yeah! If it is indeed crabgrass, then quinclorac would be one of your best bets. Quinclorac combined with Pilex at time of seeding would be your best bet. Those two herbicides combined have been ultimate, just fantastic in control. Brad, what the hell are you doing over here, sir? Heard the phone board says, thank you for your time and being accessible as lawn care preschool. Hey, thank you, Brad. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Let's see. Let's say I need to replace a stretch of trees. After grinding the stumps out, what would be the best thing to do to prep the area? Till, amend, pea on it? Planting some Thuja green giant trees. Now, with Thuja green giants, you're kind of okay there because they're going to be more tolerant of some of the weirdness that can go along after grinding out a stump. First things first, I would try and remove as much of the wood chips as you possibly can. And when you plant your green giants, I would use fertilizer stakes when you put them in the ground, and I would actually put in probably 1.5 times the recommended amount of those fertilizer stakes. And the reason why is that with all that leftover wood from grinding the stumps, what you're going to see is an unnaturally high carbon to nitrogen ratio in your soil. So to balance that out, obviously you'll have to raise the nitrogen level in your soil. And the easiest, most consistent, gentlest way to do that for a tree would be through the use of a fertilizer stake. So I would go 1.25, 1.5 times the rate on those and plant them and be good with it and have fun. They grow quickly. As a general adage, as a general rule of thumb, it goes like this. It goes, what am I talking about? Year 1, they sleep. Year 2, they creep. Year 3, they leap. There we go. Dave Hensley says, Matt, my brain is still twisted up about the humic and phosphate. How does the G-Pop product keep the humic and phosphate in suspension without separating out like it did in your test? Good question. I don't know, but again, I have repeated it 2 or 3 times, and that has been the exact result of it. So that's what got me Googling, looking for it in a real study, not just me whipping it up in the garage kind of thing. And obviously there's lots of studies out there about it as well. So that's how I would go about it. And in fact, actually, when I was mixing those two in solution, I don't know. I tell you what, Dave, shoot me an email. We'll talk about it, and I'll share with you everything I have. Is there any particular fertilizer that you can put on your shrubs before the end of the year, or should you feed them again that late? Yeah, normally I do. I would always go up with a 13 in the spring and a 13 in the fall, and then I would spray something like the 20 on them through the course of the growing season. The Peters 20, when I was spraying trees and shrubs, was my absolute wizard of a tank mix. There was nothing that performed like Peters 20 did as a foliar application on trees and shrubs. So that was my program. 13 in the spring, 13 in the fall, and 20, Peters 20 through the growing season. Trying to eradicate the fine fescue from Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass. Any suggestions other than glyphosate? No, there's not really anything you can go with there that would work. Let's see. What fungus control can be used during renovation with Kentucky bluegrass, granular or liquid? Either or. When renovating Bermuda, even though it will come back in spots, is it better to reseed with Kentucky bluegrass since it spreads as well? Not necessarily. It's totally up to you in that vein. If you overseed with Kentucky bluegrass, you have to remember how well is Kentucky bluegrass going to handle the summer. Not as well as tall fescue does. So that's kind of my thing with it there is if you're okay with allowing it to transition and Bermuda grass take over where the Kentucky bluegrass goes dormant during the summer, then that's fine. You can do that and just embrace the Bermuda grass. But seeding Kentucky bluegrass into Bermuda grass, thinking it's going to help keeping it from come back, it's not going to work that way. Bermuda and Texas. Been running prodiamine round 1, dimension round 2, and prodiamine round 6. If apps are down in time, should I drop the dimension and run all prodiamine? Rates and affordable options? You can. You definitely can do that. In fact, I'm a bigger fan of going prodiamine followed by prodiamine in the spring. Science says you're not really going to see much of a difference whether you transition to prodiamine or dimension. But from a practicality standpoint, this is the thing you run with. You flirt with just a bit more of disaster when you switch AIs like that. Prodiamine followed by prodiamine has a synergistic effect, and the second app builds upon the first application. Switching an AI into dimension, even though dimension is the same mode of action, it does not have the same synergistic effect with prodiamine after as a follow-up application. So in my opinion, I would go prodiamine followed by prodiamine, and then for round 6, I would go spectacle. Should mainly y'all are talking about spraying tenacity on fine fescue. On fine fescue, you're not going to kill it with tenacity. Maybe if you're way over label rate, you might, but you won't. You'll discolor it and then it'll bounce back. Would the 1648 be a good option for first follow-up application 4 weeks in when doing an overseed project using starter fur at time of seeding? That's a great follow-up application. Am I good to put down an 0050 at seeding of Kentucky bluegrass? Yes, you can, but don't put that down in replacement of either phosphorus or potassium. So you can apply 0050 as long as you are applying nitrogen and phosphorus as well. But if you're skipping nitrogen and phosphorus just to apply 0050, you're going to be very upset with the results you get. How about expecting that speed zone and mesotrione mix with quinclorac? Any issues there? No. Where did I go? I jumped down to the bottom. Hang on, it's coming. What are your thoughts on Ornamec for Bermuda grass creeping in flower beds? I think it's fine. That's a good option. Ornamec over the top, OTC. Yeah, have at it. Let's see. Is it? I see you, Daniel. Is it safe to use 2,4-D to kill weeds in fescue and Kentucky bluegrass lawn? The reason I ask is I can get it from my local farm store. Lawn Care Monster. Yes. If you look at any 3-way herbicide, the 90% of broadleaf herbicides we have on the market right now, they all contain 2,4-D. So if you look at Triplet, Trimec, Triad, you name it. Just go right on down the list. Crossbow, whatever the case may be. Momentum FX2. They all contain 2,4-D. It is the most widely used broadleaf herbicide in all of America. Yes, it is safe on those grasses. I seeded my lawn 18 days ago. Kentucky bluegrass. Have a large amount of crab, goosegrass, and purslane. Tenacity lost the battle and the war. How should I go about managing the weeds after the second mow? Pilex. Best place to find ammonium sulfate fertilizer. Our Site 1 carries Lesco products. Do you suggest one of your products? I already use my limit of elemental sulfur. Any other way to lower pH? I have no idea where to find ammonium sulfate in your area, Tom. I would look at, I don't know, any kind of fertilizer supplier should carry ammonium sulfate. If they don't, then I would probably shop somewhere else if I was looking for a fertilizer supply company. Ammonium sulfate, in my opinion, is one of the staple tools that people use. And if they, never mind, I need to stop before I commit career suicide there. I'm getting my butt kicked by grassy weeds. I checked with the farm co-op, Tom. I'm getting my butt kicked by grassy weeds in my tall fescue. What can I use to get rid of them? Pilex. Already got my carbon order today with Brandon from Charlotte Fertilizer Company. How about them apples? Good stuff there. Let's see. Is that a pearl snap? I don't know what that is. Jason Trailer. Oh, wait. Are you talking about this shirt right here? Is that the color of it? A pearl snap? No, it is not a pearl snap. It is not. I wish it was. When I saw it, I promise you, I thought it was when I first saw it, and I had to check it, and it wasn't. I actually inherited this from my dad, and the moment I touched it, this material, it feels like silk. I knew I had to have this shirt. In fact, this shirt causes so much contention in my house. My wife had a nightmare that I had ordered more of these shirts to the house. And so now we kind of have a running joke. Whenever I wear this, I tell her, hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. I ordered 4 more of these and they're on the way. And she gets real mad and yells at me about it. Trying to get some Bermuda to fill in these last 6 weeks of growth. PGR doing any good this late in the year? No, because you're not really getting that much upward growth. So you're going to suppress a lot of growth, but at the end, like, is it really doing anything for you? And even, so just your regular mowing will keep up with it. So just let it grow. Fertilize it good. And I know people are saying, oh, be careful with your fall fertilizer. Be careful with your fall fertilizer. Forget it. You're trying to grow it in. Push it. Push it. Don't worry about it. Push it. I have aerated my Bermuda grass the 1st of October and put down over a pound of fertilizer, and it's going to be fine. So Bermuda's a different animal. Just run with it. Do the best you can. A-dog, unnecessary, sir. Unnecessary. Thank you. It's so unnecessary, man. I'm gonna get your ass in the Discord.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna get your ass in the Discord. Where am I now? How do seed farms come up with newer grass cultivars? Do they gene splice? I don't know. Some of them might. I don't think so, though. I don't think so. I think they crossbreed. Whatever that entails, I'm pretty sure it isn't gene splicing. I think they're cross-fertilizing different things with other things to get it to work out. And a lot of times, they'll just run it as kind of a survival of the fittest mode. I've seen sod production go there, where they'll go through some sort of catastrophic event, and then the grass that survives, they give that a new name, and then they market the hell out of it because that was the grass they had left to grow in their whole field. So therefore, it must be some kind of special thing since it survived. So I've seen it go many different ways, but truth be known, I don't know. I've never really talked to the seed geneticist to have an understanding of what actually takes place. Now, what you do see on some of the vegetative varieties, you will see radioactive cobalt blasting. Let me explain. Like when they developed Tiff Tough or Tiff Sport, I can't remember which, they actually took mid-iron Bermuda and blasted it with radioactive cobalt. And that's what actually produced the Tiff Sport or Tiff Tough. I can't remember which, but it's mid-iron Bermuda that's been blasted with radiation. What is your favorite NPK liquid spray for cool season grass? It depends on the time of year. And it also depends on what my soil test says. So I need way more information because I'll tell you one. Is there any one brand I'm going to go with? No, not really. What I'm looking for is based on what my soil test says will dictate what analysis I'm looking for, which will dictate the product I apply. Can't wait to get ahead on aeration and seeding. Woo, holding off now for a week because it will be in the mid-90s this week. Man, I saw that. It is going to be hot, hot, hot in your area, good sir. Let's see here. Newly acquired lawn in Knoxville. Hey-o. About 25,000 square feet total. About 30% common Bermuda. Rest is Dallas grass, crabgrass, and broadleaf weeds. Do I control weeds and try to get Bermuda to fill in or switch turf type? Turf type tall fescue. Thoughts? So this is kind of the name of the game when I was in Knoxville. I still am in Knoxville. Kind of the name of the game to managing turf here is, one, everything is so full of Dallas grass, and if you don't believe me, I'm telling y'all, you've never seen Dallas grass like you see in the state of Tennessee or Mississippi or North Georgia or I would assume North Alabama too. You've never seen Dallas grass like it. It takes over everything. It's like kudzu. Then the second piece is that what you have to ask yourself is, which would you rather maintain? And also the other piece too is I would put it before the customer and say that because this is so bad, we're going to have to go about this either way. If we go the common Bermuda route, that's fine. I'm going to kill all the weeds and I'm going to grow this in, and it's going to take a year, 2 years for me to grow it in. If we kill everything off and switch turf types to turf type tall fescue, understand you're going to lose 10 to 25% of it a year. If you're unirrigated across this 25,000 square feet, chances are you may lose upwards of 50% of it every year, and we're going to be doing the same thing over and over. So at the end of the day, the question becomes, which way do you want to go? Longer term, managing turf type tall fescue is probably going to be more expensive than longer term managing your Bermuda grass. But most people around here have turf type tall fescue and tend to prefer it, unless you're me. I can't make that determination for you, sir. Ultimately, that's going to be between you and your customer making the best determination that fits what they're expecting of you to achieve. Charles Hurley, unnecessary, sir. I appreciate it. I'm gonna finish off my little tiny grape bottle here for that, as a matter of fact. Dave said this Ornamec OTP plus Mezzo plus Quinclorac mix slapped the sense out of my Bermuda and my turf type tall fescue. Will repeat apps clear it all out eventually, or is Pylex the one true, very expensive way to win the war? No, I think if you do repeated apps of that, you will eventually get control of it. The point is, and this is what I keep going back to with Pylex. The one thing I know with Pylex is that I know the program I need to apply to be successful. If I do not, the thing with Ornamec over the top or Mesotrione, nobody knows how many times. Thank you, Daniel, sir. Nobody knows how many of those applications you have to make. You may have to make 15. You may have to make 25. You may have to make 30 of them through the course of the growing season. Nobody knows how many you have to say. Pylex at least gives you a program. And that's why I prefer to go that route. It's easier for me as a lawn applicator to sell a program. It's easier for me as a technician to execute a program than it is to be wishy-washy and guess and just hope for the best every time I'm on that property. Because if I don't exude confidence to the customer, then I'm going to lose that war to begin with. Damon Williams, Senpai, a lot more Stress X. I will see, man. I will see what we can do. I applied their Stress X double bag rate. Curious for my soil test will say after 2 months after application. So at double bag rate, you'd be at 1.5 pounds a K. So you probably bumped it by about 30 parts per million, 40 parts per million, something like that. Okay, to spoon my tall fescue with X-Screen over the winter months if my lawn never goes dormant, you can, but if you're not actively growing, there's no point in really spoon feeding it with fertilizer. If you're not actively growing, then there's no nutrient removal taking place. Therefore, there's no reason to fertilize it. You fertilize to replace nutrients that have been removed from the soil. Does that make sense? Thoughts on doveweed in Bermuda? Celsius? What about pre and what time to apply next year? So you're kind of stuck here. With doveweed, Spectacle's probably going to be about as good as you can get. Celsius is going to be about as good as you can get. There is a new one that I cannot remember what the name of it is. Velspar. That's paint. I can't remember what it is. There's a new one that's supposed to be great for doveweed. It was developed specifically for doveweed. I haven't followed up with it to see how well it's doing. Relzar, RELZAR, something like that. And I think it's by Corteva. I think Corteva used to be DowAgro Sciences, are the ones that develop. I checked their website. I think they may have something. If not, Celsius is going to be about as good as you can get. As far as the pre, you would apply in spring or early summer, late spring, early summer, and probably Spectacle would be as good as you can get there. The Peters 2020 you were using for plants, you dissolve this in water and spray like an ortho sprayer. If not, how did you do it? That's exactly how I did it. I would take a 50-pound bag and dump it in my 100-gallon tank, dissolve it, and get out there and light that baby up with a JD9 gun, powered by my, let's see, I used a, who are the guys in Pocahontas, Arkansas? GNC. I used a GNC piston pump, the most reliable pump I've ever used in my entire life. And that powered everything I did for lawns and tree shrubs as well. For spoon feeding new Kentucky bluegrass, I went with urea at 1/4 pound per 1,000. Wanted to add 818. What are your thoughts on doing 2 pounds 818 every other week and a 1/4 pound of urea every week? Too much in? No, I think you'd be fine there because, you're growing in Bermuda and all that fun stuff. Are you down with liquid aeration or no? If you show me that you are manipulating the bulk density of the soil, I'll be all for it. If you can show me increased gas exchange, I'll be all for it at the same rate that you would out of like an aeration. Outside of that, the way I understand it works is even if you're taking a humic-based liquid aeration product, again, what you're capitalizing on there is a reaction of something that contains lipids, in this instance, linardite, which is the base material for humics, that has been saponified. It's been through a reaction called saponification where it reacts with a hydroxide. That saponification is basically the same crude reaction that takes place when you form soap. So no matter how you cut it, at the end of the day, you're applying something like a soap to the soil, which there are benefits to that. There are people that get out there with their not dishwashing detergent, baby shampoo, especially during seed establishment and stuff, and you get more even infiltration of water across your soil surface. And there are big benefits to that. Remember, water dissolves the nutrients in the soil that make them plant available. I'm not saying it's not available and all that, but the term aeration to me is a bit of a woo-hoo. Hey, Matt, doing a full renovation in Maryland. Plan was to do 12 pounds per 1,000 of X-Oil tomorrow and then 3 pounds per 1,000 of X-Start the day after. Any risk of too much peptide? No, nowhere near at those rates. Matt Martinez applied my first round of glyphosate on common. When my 4th round is complete and I see we Kentucky bluegrass, when should I use depth 10? In all likelihood, you may get 1 or 2 applications. I'd wait till it's up or at the time of seeding. You can do either one of those, at the time of the seeding or after it's up. And then I would probably let it alone until the next spring, and that's where I would go ham with it. Would you suggest applying X-Oil to my Bermuda during the winter? Grass doesn't go fully dormant. No, you can. But the only time I would do it is if you cored it and then collected your cores and then applied it. But what I would do is just wait till it starts actively growing again next year and then start with it. Did you used to have a post-seeding fungicide program for your cool season? No, I did not. I never applied fungicides when I was seeding. I never really saw the necessity of it. If it did break out into something that I felt the need to have to go in and spray a fungicide for, I would, but it was never, ever a normal thing that I would do. Any videos you did back in the day or anyone else would recommend on using the PGR in cool season? I need a lesson. It's not my favorite thing to do. You have to time it very correctly, and if you are going to choose it, I would only use the one from NuFarm that Paul was doing anew. I would not use T-Nex, and I sure as hell would not use Trim It. Pete, what are you doing, good sir? Welcome to the live stream. Ryan is here too. What are you doing, Ryan? We got Ryan and Pete here. Connor was here earlier. What happened? Look at all these famous YouTubers coming in here. My goodness. Let's see. What pre-emergent makes life difficult on Bermuda? Going with a pre-post strategy next year. What pre-emergent makes life difficult on Bermuda? Pendimethalin would make life difficult in my experience. Dimension makes my life difficult in my experience on Bermuda. Surfland would make my life difficult on Bermuda. I think that's what you're asking me. The ones that don't work very well, those would be the ones. Lawn Kings Landscaping. Hello. Just went full-time this year. Hey, there you go. Welcome, dude. Welcome. Nutsedge and Kalinga issues on warm season grass. Dismiss NXT to control. It's all over the place and looking to do a broadcast treatment in a Bahia lawn. No, I definitely, on a Bahia lawn, I would just use Dismiss. And if you want to run Dismiss NXT, get some Quicksilver and mix it with it. Dismiss NXT, in my opinion, is the dumbest herbicide that has ever come out. It is just a combination of Quicksilver, carfentrazone, and Dismiss, sulfentrazone. They're the same same mode of action, very similar in terms of efficacy. One controls sedge, one just burns the leaves. Dismiss already burns the leaves. I don't know why you need to burn it in 24 hours when you can normally burn it in 48 hours with Dismiss. In my opinion, it is just silly. It does not make Dismiss work any better than it already does. It just changes it from working in 2 days into 1 day. And in my opinion, that is dumb. Is there a question you have never been asked? Here one. Which one is your favorite, buttonweed or Dallas grass? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'll tell you this. It used to be buttonweed because I struggled so hard to control buttonweed. And while I was trying to figure out how to control buttonweed, I figured out how to control Dallas grass. Now that the tables have kind of turned, neither of those really freak me out. The one that I really, really like as a favorite, Steve, is broom sedge. Broom's edge, whatever the case may be, that is the one that just, whoo, that's a next level kind of love I've got there. Let's see. Where am I? Connor being a bully. Unclear question. Here we go. Want to slow Bermuda spread with pre-emergent while trying to kill what I have with post-emergent. Oh, none of it will ever work in that regard. There's nothing you can do, the only thing you're going to be able to do is just go after it post-emergently. There's no pre that's going to help you in that regard. Because it's all native, it's all material that's been there for a very long time. That's just moving into the area. It's not, that's not like established from seed or just sodded and learning its new environment. Adam Michelwood says, number one tip you have for an applicator next season? Yeah. Learn to say no to your customers. Learn to say no and understand your worth. And those are easily the most number ones. And two, I'll keep going on this. Number three, if you make a mistake, get out in front of it. Number four, don't let a customer convince you made a mistake unless you're sure you actually made a mistake. And there's lots of others. And five, quit worrying about being a good technician. Learn business. Business should be your number one focus day in and day out. The technician piece should come to you easy. What is your personal biggest challenge, pain when overseeding? Also, what is your most important suggestion other than watering regularly when seeding? I've never had a challenge when overseeding. Maybe if I've been through an extended drought prior to, then it's hard to get to agitate the soil surface, but I've never really had a challenge or pain when overseeding. It all would relate to water. You know, how much rain are you getting, right? So in the absence of that, it's just kind of there's nothing really difficult about it. You just do it, and somehow nature finds a way and always wins in that regard. Biggest passion in life outside of lawn care? It's kind of hard to say. If you're asking about purely from a hobby perspective, I really love to fish, But really, like, what do I do? And this, you can kind of ask anybody. I hang out with my family, and I do turf. That's about it. I fish from time to time. I really love to get my son out on the water and go fish with me. That's a great time for me. But really, at the end of the day, it's turf and learning as much as I possibly can. My biggest passion is being obsessive, compulsive with not just turf, but anything I put my mind to is just being hyper vigilant and obsessive compulsive about it. How does Pennant Magnum compare to prodiamine and other pre-emergence on warm season turf? It doesn't compare. Totally different animal, totally different expectation, totally different deal there. They do not compare at all. Can I run Pennant Magnum alone, or should I run prodiamine and Pennant Magnum together? I would run them together or in alternation of one then followed by the other. But understand, you can't run a half rate of prodiamine followed by a half rate of Pennant and think you're going to get a full rate out of it. They're two different AIs, two different modes of actions. They have to be run singularly as singular applications. They're just, applying them in 2 different time zones. And Pennant Magnum is nowhere near as long or has quite the amount of efficacy on grassy weeds that prodiamine does. Never fertilize again or never use herbicides again. I would probably never fertilize again rather than give up herbicides, because if we have to give up herbicides, we're all going to starve to death, and we will be overrun by invasives so quickly that it would just be like, it would just be just a total disaster. We would starve to death first by running out of herbicides than we would running out of fertilizer. We could figure out a way to get by for a little bit without fertilizer, but if we didn't have herbicides, that's it. We're dying. Let's see. What's the hell with my weak shade of Bermuda? You cut your own tree down, sir. When are we getting another whiteboard video? There may be one in the work. I may have been putting up a whiteboard somewhere else and kind of testing it. And man, I tell you what, I was echoing real bad when I was talking in there. So I may or may not have gotten a clip on mic to test it and see if it works there. I don't know. Maybe. Trying to stop the spread of common. Would it be more effective to use a vaccine, wear a mask, social distance, or a combination of all? Yes! Line them up and let them all fall. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I had a good time. The time is upon us. I made it to the end of the chat. It is 10:05. I hope y'all all have a fantastic week. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Kind of leaves no limits. I'm going to be really, really overwhelmed with life and work and everything that has to take place this week. I'm telling you right now, this week is not going to be a crazy week. So I'll do my best on the radio show to get those up in a stream and all that fun stuff. And we'll see what ends up happening. All right, everybody, y'all have a fantastic evening. I love you all. We'll see you on the flip side.